All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations for the Terry Felke-Morris book, Web Development and Design Foundations with HTML5, 8th edition. We're in the middle of Chapter 4, and we're now going to get into a tag, maybe the first tag that we've really talked about in any depth and breadth of coverage, that is a new, true HTML5 tag, and that is the figure element. As it says there, it contains a unit of content that is self-contained, such as an image, along with an optional fig caption. So let's put them both in. So I'm going to grab everything that's here, even though I'm going to strip a bunch of it away in just a minute. But let's grab the Rankin logo that we have there. Okay, so we'll surround that Rankin logo with figure tags, so I'll tab these over. And we don't need this image, we don't need any of this stuff that's here, but we'll put in a fig caption down at the bottom. Let's grab all that. So bring that in here, fig caption tag. And we'll put in here Rankin Technical College logo. And then we will end our figure tag. Now hopefully I didn't make any mistakes syntactically by putting those in here, but we're going to find out right now. So you see the Rankin logo here. Okay, so now we've got a figure caption that goes with it. I mean, as of right now, you might look at that and say, that's fine, but I don't see exactly what that buys me. Again, it is a new HTML5 tag. All right, and there's a running example in the chapter here of this Lighthouse Island Bistro, where it might make a little bit more sense what they have in there. Okay. All right. Next, an HTML5 meter element. All right. Let's grab these. We're again just going to paste them into our document. All right, we've got minimums and maximums. There's total visits. Let's change what they say here. 7,000. We'll put this for AWD 1000. This will be for AWD 1100. This will be for AWD 1111. These are just different courses in the AWD program, so I'm just making this up. AWD 1112. We'll put here other, and I'm just going to make this 512. And I'm going to get rid of that one here. Alright, so let's run this, take a look at it. We'll go back and not reverse engineer it, but just go back and take a look at it. Alright. So if we blow this up a little bit as far as being on the screen here, a little bit bigger, there we go. All right, so what do we have? Let's go and take a look at it. It displays a visual gauge of a numeric value within a known range. So in this case, this 14,417 is the addition of 7,000, 3,800, 2,062, 1,043, and 512. So it's got both kind of a total and a piece by piece. It's sort of a pie chart. It's not a pie chart. All right, I know that sounds a little silly maybe, but if you are to create something like this, to my knowledge, you are responsible. Notice the min and the max. Well, there's our max. The minimum would be none. You know, if there literally were not any of whatever it is you were looking for. All right. And that should have said 512 there. And there. Don't think that's probably not going to change very much the way this looks, but no, it didn't. Again, as it says, it is a meter. Not only is there a meter element, as we see right here, there's a progress element. Sometimes you want to show something like that, as it says, where you are towards your goal. So notice we're trying to get to 10,000, we're at 5,000, so in other words, we're at 50%. All right, so it is a progress control. As mentioned, there are displays of bar that depicts a numeric value within some kind of range. Okay? All right. Background image property. So if we want to configure a background image, let's, as we have done in the past, let's go out here and let's put in here light colored background image. Okay. And I'm just going to see if something kind of tickles my fancy. Let's just grab the first one here. So we'll save this image. And we'll call it background image. .jpg. All right. Then we will come in here and we will look at the way this is done. It says by default background images repeat, so they tile. But let's take a look if we put this in. Now, in order to do this, we're going to have to go into our CSS, open that up, and is there anything in the, you know, we got a background color in here. Let's add the background image. Now notice that when we do this, please notice the syntax for it. Background image URL, then we've got to give it the name. Well, it's not a GIF. It was under images, and it's background image.jpg. I think that was right. Let's double check. Looks like it. Let's check. What's very nice about this is doing this, coming back and refreshing, you'll know right away whether or not this worked. Make this smaller again. All right. And it didn't do a darn thing, so it appears as though I've made some kind of a mistake. Background image URL images background image.jpg. Looks right to me. As far as I can tell, everything I put in there was correct. Images, background image.jpg. Alright, I don't see anything there that looks wrong. But it's not showing that image. Alright, so let's see if we can figure out why. put it under the background, into the images folder. There it is. Alright, and did I bring up the right CSS file? Yes, I did. And that's correct, and that's correct. 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 It's going to have to be /images because I am in a folder. I've got to go back up to where I was. Let's see if that changed it. Ta-da! And there's my background image. Now notice that by default, as it says here, it tiles or it keeps repeating. So I've got it all over the place back here, which sometimes is what you want and sometimes probably is not what you want. So as shown right here, we can tell it to repeat. The default is repeat, which means keep showing it. But I can have it repeat Y, or I can have it repeat X. Alright, let's just try to repeat Y just to see what it looks like. So it's background repeat, repeat Y. And let's see if that changes the way that this looks. So you see now it just appears along the y-axis. Okay? If I change it to X, it'll appear just along the top here. You can do that just so you can see it. And there you go. Alright, so there's just a couple of examples of what you can do with this, okay? Multiple background images, so we could have more than one if we wanted to. I'm not going to get into that right now. I think that's fine. Alright, a couple other things that you can do here, such as image maps, favorites icon, CSS sprites, sources for graphics, guidelines for using images, accessibility and visual elements. It's going to be most of the rest of the chapter. All right, first thing that's here is an image map. Let's see if we can find one online, and I'll just pluck it in here. Image, yeah, I'm going to spell it right. Image map example. Okay. This is a famous one. So if you look here, these are called hotspots. So if, for instance, if I click on Missouri, what do I get? All right. It's going to bring up the U.S. government's Missouri page. All right, you can see up here it's mo.html. On the other hand, if I choose Texas, it brings up texas.xml, HTML rather. Now, I'm not the greatest of examples. How about, because this is one I like seeing. It's one most people can identify with. Human body image map example. Okay, so if you bring this up, these all become different hotspots. So notice that when I put my mouse here, and if I put it here, for example, and I click, it's going to give me information about where I just clicked. All right. Now, I'm not giving you the greatest of examples. How about simple image map example with code? Well, that was supposed to be from W3 schools, but it's thinking about it. Okay, it's timed out, so it doesn't like something I've got in there. Now, I used to have a great example. Unfortunately, last year, when I transferred a bunch of stuff over, I ended up dropping my external drive, and I lost a bunch of stuff. That's on me, but I just want to see. I don't think I have it available, but I'm just going to check anyway, just in case. And if I don't, no, it's just a little bit of time we've wasted. Let's go to the C drive here. I did an image map on Mount Rushmore, and it's kind of interesting because it allowed me to use the polygraph form on there and with the 4 presidents that are on there, but it looks as though it's probably not going to be here. I'll look and see if I possibly have it on another machine, but my guess is I probably don't. While it's working on that, let's go back to here. We can go back if we need to and just actually look at what they have in the textbook here. And that is, so here's a boat, and they've drawn a rectangle around the boat. So if you touch anywhere in here, what's going to end up happening is it's going to bring up fishingdoorcounty.com. Okay, so as mentioned right here, an image map has a map element that defines the map and an area which defines what in the map is going to be clickable. You can set the shape to be rectangular, circular, or polygon, where you kind of hand draw the shape yourself. It has an href attribute which says what page or pages you should bring up, a shape attribute which is again one of these, and a coordinates attribute. Okay, all right. A favicon. Okay, let's jump into a favicon. Let's try doing a favicon here. That's going to be up at the top of my page here. It's going to be in here. Okay, now it's favicon.ico. 1 second. Still working on that. Okay. I'm looking for a 20 by 20 image here. Or a 20 by 20 favicon. Not finding what I'm looking for. Don't know if I do this. If I click on, I go to Google Images and look for a 20 by 20 favicon. See, I'm looking for something that actually is 20 by 20. A lot of good luck, a lot of luck here. None of it good, but a lot of luck here. When you create a favicon, that's what comes up here. Notice there's an image here and there's one here. All right. Let's see if I can do that. Let's grab a Rankin. This isn't going to probably work correctly, but we're going to try it anyway. I'm just going to call it Rankin.ping. All right, and we came up here. That'll be images / okay, favicon.ico is what we have to call that. Don't know if this is going to work or not, but we're going to try it anyway. There it is. It's 119 by 119, which is what I don't want, but we're going to try it anyway. So I put it in here, and it might look real huge. It might not even work, but we're going to try it. Refresh. There it is. Jeff's website. See that? It's got the R there. That was my favicon. And sometimes people, when you have your own website, people, an author of a website might put his or her picture in there or something else. There's a lot of ways, a lot of things that you can do with this. Okay, it did not find my Mount Rushmore. Darn it. Okay, let's just work our way onwards. So it's a square image associated with a web page, typically named favicon.ico, and it can display virtually anything you want it to display. You can make your own. I was always told that you should try to make it about 20 by 20. Okay. Sprites. Sprites been around for years. They're image files that contain multiple small graphics that are configured as kind of like one image. We're going to talk about them more in a later chapter. All right. Sources for graphics. There are free graphics available online from different sites. You can also go and take your own pictures, so you'd have your own graphics. You can buy graphics from people. One thing you should never ever do is take graphics from someone else's site and put them onto your site unless you have written permission to do so. Things about images. Consider the image file size, how long it'll take to load. Typically, the more complex the image, the longer it will take to load. You might have to work with resolution and dimensions. Again, beware of brightness and contrast. We talked about that before. When you're working with people who have any kind of an accessibility, don't rely on color alone. We already talked about people who are colorblind. Provide a text equivalent. You might have people that want to buy your product, but they're blind. So give a written description for them also. If your site your navigation uses image links, provide text links on the bottom of the page. Not everybody likes to, just because you look at something and you go, wow, that's cool. That doesn't mean everyone else is going to think that. All right, border radius. Let's come in here and grab this, border radius. All right, and we'll come in here, look at our CSS file. And we've got that H1 stuff. Let's get rid of the border that we put in here, so we'll comment all this out. Let's get rid of the margin that's in here. So I'm commenting all of this out. All right, now when we go back to our page and we go and refresh, notice now that this is an H1 tag. There's nothing around it. Okay, that's it. All right. Now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to say what I do want in here is a border radius of 15 pixels. So let's take a look and see if that does anything. I don't know if it offhand if it will or not, but we're going to look. I think I need to put something around it, but I could be wrong there. So notice they've added a div there, and the div has got a border radius around it. Let's try using their example. So we come into our style sheet. There's our div. And then, so let's save this. And then let's go to our page. And we'll add the div. Again, you can put that anywhere. We've been putting things down toward the bottom, so I'm going to continue doing that. Alright, so let's save and run this. We'll refresh our page. Go down to the bottom of the page, and notice the radius. It gives us the rounded effect. If we take the radius out of there, just to show you the difference. So let's take the line with the border radius. Let's comment that line out. Go back to our page and let's refresh. Okay, so instead of having the squared look, it has a roundish look. A lot of people like to use the border radius on buttons if they're creating their own buttons. Okay, notice that when you do this, you can have rounded corners, you can have partially rounded corners. Okay, here's the box shadow property, just to make something look a little bit different. As it says, configure the horizontal offset, vertical offset, blur radius, and color value. We'll look at this in more depth later. The opacity is kind of neat. Alright, let's try using that opacity that they have right there. We'll just grab that opacity and we'll make it the same thing. We'll make it 60%, which means that rather than showing as it's showing, alright, and we'll put the radius back, at 100%, we're saying show it at 60%. You say, I don't understand. Kind of hard to tell on here, but it's a little bleached out, for lack of better words. Let's change it down to about 25%. Alright, and now look. See how it's getting lighter and lighter? You can do that when you work with opacity. Sometimes people like to have things, it's not exactly a fade in and a fade out, but it's typically something you're doing more for effect, like we've got right here. I talked a little bit before about RGBA. That's red, green, blue, and alpha, which is how much transparency. So in other words, this says 255, 255, 255, which is white. but it says show it at only 70%. Okay? So sometimes when you use these, what ends up happening is you can use them for effects. HSLA, I'd mentioned this before, hue, saturation, light, alpha, the same kind of thing. Hue, as it says, is a value between 0 and 360. Saturation and lightness are done by percentages, and the alpha is from 0 to 1, 0 being transparent, 1 being opaque. Gradients. Gradients are a blending of one color to another color. All right, and again, I don't have great examples to show you right now, so here was the end of our chapter. So we talked about how to add lines and borders to web pages. We started with a horizontal rule. We added borders. We did a lot of work with the image element, including optimizing images, configuring images, images for hyperlinks. We looked in a little bit of depth on some of the CSS3 properties. Showed you background images. We looked at rounded corners. I didn't really show you the box shadow or the text shadow. I did show you the opacity. I mentioned RGBA and HSLA. I did show you the HTML5 elements for captioning a figure. We quickly looked at the meter and progress elements. All right, I talked a little bit about free versus not free graphic sources and some of the recommended guidelines. So that's it for Chapter 4. When we get into Chapter 5, we are going to talk about, it says summarize web design. It's more, there's not a lot of new stuff in here as far as tags and whatever. This is more a best practices type of chapter. So we'll be back with that shortly.